Hi, very good morning to you all for joining us. Thank you very much. Charlie, are you able to view the slide?
I'm not seeing, unless this is the lead 5 proving ROI, that's the
Yes,
first
that's
slide?
the one. Yes,
Okay.
that's the one.
Good. I can see
Okay,
it.
we have to go.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, good morning or good afternoon to everyone, and thank you very much for joining this webinar. My name is Mark Lee, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Services for Solix Technologies, and I'll be hosting the call today. We're very pleased to have 2 additional speakers on the webinar, and I'll introduce those folks in just a moment. They represent Oracle Corporation and Sun Microsystems, soon to be part of Oracle Corporation. And the topic we're going to be covering today is titled Proving ROI from Database Archiving. So Solix is a database archiving company, and so we're going to be talking about the why of database archiving today. So why would you want to do this, and why it can generate a positive return for your company. We're not going to be covering the what or the how, but if you are interested in learning more about what we do and how we do it, beyond just a very cursory discussion we'll have of that today, then please contact us and we'll get you that information. So let's move on to the introduction slide. Okay, and I would like to introduce Charlie Gary from the Oracle Corporation. Charlie is going to be our primary speaker today. He's the Director and Product Manager for Oracle Servers Technologies, and he's been involved in this topic of database archiving and generating positive return on investment from this kind of technology for a long time in his previous role at Meta Group, and he was also former VP of Infrastructure Strategies at Platinum Technology. So I'm pleased to hand it over to Charlie now, and he'll take us through a discussion from Oracle's perspective.
Thanks, Mark, and welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to join our partner Solix here today to talk about a subject that's near and dear to our hearts, certainly here at Oracle, and that being that our whole development life cycle, certainly from 9i through 11g, has been about how do you simplify infrastructure and thereby simplify your life. Certainly, one of the things that I've seen in my career, and certainly in the 6 years I was at Meta Group, was that many, many companies are simply weighed down by the cost of maintaining a very complex infrastructure. And certainly, one of the things the Oracle database is well known for has been a lot of innovation. Much of that innovation is directed completely at how we reduce the total cost of ownership of managing, an enterprise information infrastructure. If we can go to the next slide, please. And certainly, when we talk to the over 300,000 Oracle database customers, it's a common refrain that we hear when we talk to the IT side and when we talk to the business owners. And that's the fact that there's some, very distinct, very strong competing challenges that are faced on both sides. Certainly, in today's environment, costs are everything. Mark mentioned at the top that this webinar is going to be focused on return on investment, and I've been to lots of customers in the last 12 months who have readjusted kind of their ROI horizon from used to be about 2 years to, in many cases, less than a year. And as you know, those of you who've been in IT for a long time, that's a very aggressive target to achieve a return on investment in any kind of software project in under a year, especially something very complex. And really, complexity is the issue here. If we can reduce complexity, we can reduce cost and risks. At the same time, we can allow the rate of change to happen much more quickly and much more safely. And that's kind of what we've been working on since the first delivery of 9i. If you want to go to the next slide, please. Now, Gartner certainly talked about this when they did a survey of their customer base back in 2006. I call it the non-virtuous cycle. If you notice here, they basically asked their customer base, give us your number one and number two most pressing issues that you're being faced with. Not surprisingly, the rate of change came out to be both the number one and the number two biggest pressure. Because when I talk to business owners are saying, IT cannot change rapidly enough for us, that they're not enabling us to be competitive, so forth and so on. Whereas when I talk to the IT guys will say, well, we'd love to give them the change that they want, but whenever we change something, it creates issues in terms of availability. It's very costly to do, very time-consuming, because we have so much different things, so many kinds of things, so many numbers of things that we have to maintain that it simply makes change very difficult. And this is the non-virtuous cycle. So, the business owners want change, but the change that they want has to happen very slowly and deliberately, because the impact that it has on the IT systems, which business is completely dependent upon. The problem is that a lot of business owners will then go and say, it's taking too long. I want to go in another direction, and it typically means bringing something in, maybe in some cases something completely different, some application infrastructure that's never been supported before, to get something done quick, fast, and dirty, but without realizing what the long-term implications of that sort of methodology creates over time, and simply it adds to the complexity, which adds to the cost, which adds to the risk, and so forth and so on. So it is definitely a non-virtuous cycle. If you want to go ahead to the next screen, please. And certainly, a lot of the things we've been working on at Oracle, certainly in the last 3 releases, especially when you think about our grid architecture, our autonomic management capabilities, when we introduce things like automatic database diagnostic manager, the automatic warehouse repository for historical stats gathering, and so forth. All these things, this infrastructure that was put in place to make it easier to maintain the database, to make it easier to change the database, to be able to use redundant infrastructure, is all about infrastructure, but it also impacts your ability to change quickly, and therefore the cost of change, the risk of change. Certainly you see it in the large ERP applications, be it Oracle, own apps, SAP, and so forth. Your ability to upgrade, as that database grows, your ability to upgrade those applications quickly is certainly impacted. And in the years that I've covered kind of the archive space when I was an analyst, many of the early adopters, this was the prime reason why they were looking at database archiving in particular, was because of the inability to be able to upgrade in a timely fashion. Certainly, like with any kind of application, when a database grows, the performance of that application degrades over time unless you continue to grow the infrastructure as well. So more processing power, more I/O bandwidth, all this creates cost. It all involves change as well. And as we've already mentioned, change can be a risky thing as well. It also increases the cost of maintaining that database environment. Backup times get longer, reorg times get longer, stats gathering to maintain a good application plan performance all get longer. And that rate of database growth is certainly exploding. In fact, there are numbers out there indicating that data growth is actually tripling every 24 months. Go ahead to the next slide, please. So one of the things we've done from a database perspective has been to put in functionality and capability to help deal with a very large database issue. Unfortunately, many customers have tended to base all of their information on one tier of storage, and usually the most expensive tier of storage. And you know, as storage technology has changed over time, you know, the conventional wisdom has been that storage is cheap. But in fact, the opposite is likely to be true. If we look at an example here, so if we were to try to use our infrastructure in a proper fashion so that we could match the value of the data to the value of the storage infrastructure on which it lives, then the money that could be saved is quite astounding. So in this particular example, this is a typical kind of infrastructure design where everything is stored on a single tier of storage. And you can see that, you know, for that high-end SAN storage can be quite expensive. Okay? So if we go ahead and tier, if you go to the next slide, please. Now, the average, let's talk about, for instance, a data warehouse, which tends to be very large. And certainly a lot of the ERP applications are moving definitely the area where most of the data is residing in kind of their analytic environments. Most of that data, typical large-scale data warehouse, in fact, almost 85% of it, typically, or higher, is no longer active or very active at all. So if we were to go ahead and apply that kind of thinking and move the less active data to cheaper tiers of storage, which can be done using a feature in the Oracle database called automatic storage management and our partitioning option, this can be handled very easily. If you go ahead to the next slide. And if we apply that, if you look at the different costs in storage, you can see that it's significant, from $72 per gigabyte down to $14 per gigabyte, or even $7. In fact, those numbers, this is kind of an old example, those numbers have changed significantly and will continue to change as the cost of a unit of storage continuously drives lower and lower. Go ahead to the next slide. We want to go ahead and add to that, you know, the reduction in storage costs. If you go to the next slide, please. You can see here that, you know, before we were to do any sort of matching the value of the data, in other words, the most active data being the most valuable, the least active being the least valuable, if we match their value to the value of the storage infrastructure on which they live, we can save significantly. In fact, we've dialed out almost the entire cost. You go ahead to the next slide, please. If we then go ahead and apply compression on top of that, you can drive down those costs even further. If you go ahead to the next slide, please. Now, some of you may have heard that Oracle Database 11G Release 2 is about to come out. And in that release, you're going to see, in this example, we're showing 3 times compression. In that release, you're going to see some revolutionary new compression capabilities, in which we're talking about compression ratios of as much as 10 to 15 times or more. But so you can see how the cost, though, can be significantly reduced here. If we go ahead to the next slide, please. And of course, we're talking about, typically in a relational database, you're talking about structured data. But of course, 85% of the data in your environment is going to be of the unstructured variety. You know, typically stored as LOB data types. And we've done a lot of work in the Oracle database to make it so you can simplify your information infrastructure and actually store all data, not just structured data, in the Oracle database. One thing to manage, one way to back it up, secure it, and so forth. In addition to that, we've introduced the Oracle Universal Archive product, which has special capabilities that allows for even further reduction, especially in the area of unstructured data. So deduplication, as an example, is a huge piece of technology that's been added to our archiving capabilities. If you want to go ahead to the next slide, please. But of course, we can't do everything at Oracle. And the kind of examples I showed you with tiered storage, archiving of unstructured data, that type of approach solves some use cases, but does not solve all the use cases when you're looking at how to do archiving. So many times you're going to need what I would refer to as intelligent archiving. So this is when you simply cannot identify and archive data simply based on age, because that is a very simplistic approach to how some data should be archived and handled. So our partner Solix handles this kind of gap in our current product portfolio, this ability to do intelligent archiving. So if you have a case where you have a very complex application, like certainly the e-business suite would certainly qualify as a complex application. And you have, on top of that, maybe some very specific business rules for your particular organization that must be adhered to before you can actually archive a row or a set of rows off the primary database. Then Solix is that partner that we bring in those situations to help our customer base solve the use case in which intelligent archiving is required. One of the reasons why Solix is our preferred partner in this instance is because of, first of all, they not only but fully exploit many of our advanced capabilities that are features and or options within the Oracle database. So they support things like partitioning. They support some very advanced capabilities like our flashback capabilities, our multi-version consistent read capabilities, to do some unique types of archiving that you can't find really in any other kind of information platform. They integrate with our Oracle Flashback Archive, which makes it very nice in terms of allowing a dual-purpose environment for you to both archive and to make use of on a daily basis for things like auditing and so forth. And of course, it integrates with our Oracle Universal Online Archive product in a special way to a point that's really unmatched by any other competitor in the application archive space. I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide, please. So I'm going to be turning this back over to Mark, but in my years of working with customers and talking to them about information lifecycle management as one of the processes that you would follow, along with kind of things like infrastructure consolidation, infrastructure rationalization, these are all best practices that companies at this point in the maturity of our industry really need to be thinking about if they want to actually find real, true, low-cost computing. And certainly the first thing we always talk to our customers about, that we've given you the tools in the Oracle database to help you reduce the complexity of your information environment and thereby reduce costs. So, really, our challenge to our customer base is, let us help you have fewer things to manage, not more. Fewer kinds of things to manage so that you can actually change more quickly, and when you do change, that you can do so safely and avoid the risk and avoid the downtime. Our grid architecture solves many of these issues, and certainly the low-cost infrastructure along with high availability and adaptability is probably the most blatant advantage of the grid architecture. But its unique ability to adapt to change is really unparalleled. In terms of ILM archiving, that also simplifying the amount of data that you have to, just from a performance standpoint, upgrade and quality of service standpoint, if you can simplify by reducing the amount of data that you actually have to, force a database query to slog through, data that may no longer be pertinent or useful to you anymore, this is where archiving can bring immediate benefits to you in terms of allowing you to reduce the maintenance costs, improve the performance, and so forth. And what Solix brings to the table is this ability to do intelligent archiving, to actually automate and apply policy-driven rules to when and how something should be archived. I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mark. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that. So, again, this is Mark, and as I mentioned, I run the services group for Solix. And prior to joining Solix, I've spent the last 15 years working with large enterprise applications like Oracle, eBusiness Suite, and SAP, and PeopleSoft. I was with Bearing Point at the time running their enterprise applications group, and I certainly understand the need for IT organizations to be able to demonstrate a payback and a positive ROI on any project that they propose that requires capital expenditure. So let's go to the next slide, and we'll talk about how do you actually generate return on investment from a database archiving project. So there's several ways, and I'm just going to go down the list here. The first thing that our customers have told us is they need to improve their application performance, or at least maintain that performance with a stable amount of infrastructure. So, as Charlie mentioned, as the data grows in your application, performance tends to degrade. And you have a couple of choices. Either throw additional infrastructure at the problem in the form of, more processors, faster machine, just additional infrastructure to keep the performance where you want it. Or you can implement an database archiving solution like Solix provides. That can lower your long-term infrastructure costs. It can also lower your costs in terms of operational efficiency inside your organization. If any of you have ever experienced performance problems with an enterprise application, you know that not only does it impact customer satisfaction, but it can also impact the efficiency of your business users and the overall efficiency of the organization. The next category of cost savings is for IT operations. So as your database grows, it takes more and more time to do just daily IT operations like backups, cloning, data transfer from your transaction system to your reporting and OLAP systems, additional DBA time to keep the application tuned and even just to monitor it. So if we can reduce the size of that production database, you can see reductions in all of those kind of operational activities and also the costs that are associated with those activities. The next category, and Charlie touched on this, is in storage. So if by relocating the less active or less used data from your primary tier storage to a lower tier storage, we've seen reductions in overall storage costs between 40 to 50%. There's also a multiplier effect for a typical enterprise application because not only do you have to maintain the production copy of the database, but most organizations maintain additional copies for their development teams and their testing teams. We've seen companies that maintain as many as 12 full-size copies of their production database. So obviously, if you can reduce the size of your production database through database archiving, there's a big multiplier effect in terms of how that will ripple through your tested development copies as well. And lastly, by implementing a solution like Solix, you can lower your compliance costs. So might have you might have considered an archiving or a purging process where you put data away, where it's very hard to get at, takes a long time, and then if you're faced with an audit request or an e-discovery request, it can really take a long time, and the service level on that is not what you would want it to be. So by setting up access to the archived data through the original application interface and making it very seamless for the users, you can lower those kind of compliance costs as well. And with all of the combination of ways to reduce cost, we believe and we've seen that database archiving can achieve a positive return on investment in less than a year. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And I'm going to cover 3 case studies briefly. So the first case study is from DHL. They're a global leader in logistics. They're a user of the Oracle E-Business Suite application. And they were experiencing application performance problems, but most significantly, it was taking them a huge amount of time to create the copies of their database to support their test and development. So not only does Solix provide database archiving, but we use the same technology to help you automate the cloning and subsetting of your production database so that you can much more efficiently support your test and development teams. So what we implemented for DHL was our archiving solution and then our exclusive subsetting solution, which is called the insert method, along with a security masking solution. We were able to reduce the time it took them to create the clones for their test and development teams by more than 300% and reduce their total storage footprint by more than 50%. The next case study is a user of the Bond application, and I'm going to give 3 different types of application users in these 3 case studies to demonstrate that our product is application independent. We support most of the major enterprise applications in the marketplace, all of the ones that come from Oracle, as well as the major ones from other vendors. So this particular user is Diebold. They manufacture automations. They were using Bond for their shop floor operations and running on an Informix database. And unlike the Oracle database, the Informix database, the version they were using, had some pretty hard limits in terms of size, and they were running up against those limits, and it was causing the application to be very unstable and also have major performance problems. So they were looking for a solution that would improve the stability, reduce the amount of downtime that they had, and improve the overall performance of the application. So we implemented our archiving solution, and we were able to achieve those objectives of improving the performance and, more importantly, providing them a much more stable environment in which to run their business. The next case study is a user of the J.D. Edwards application. It's Ghirardelli Chocolates. They manufacturers and marketers of premium chocolate products. They were experiencing performance degradation, and they had an interesting situation where they had 2 production instances running on different versions of the SQL Server database. They needed to archive data out of both of the versions, but they wanted to put it in a single archive repository. Using our archiving solution, we were able to do that for them and improve their performance and reduce the infrastructure costs and provide a very seamless environment for them to view their archive data that came from 2 different instances into a single archive platform. So those are the case studies I wanted to cover. Now I want to just spend just a couple minutes talking about something new that Solix has introduced into the market that we think will be a major driver for improved return on investment in the marketplace. So I'm going to start by playing a little what-if game and go ahead and build that first piece out. So I'd like to use the analogy, the database archiving business is similar to moving business. So in a database archiving business, we're moving data. We're relocating it from one location driver's license, meaning you'd have to learn how to drive the truck. You'd have to take time off from your real job to do this work, do a lot of really hard work, and then you'd get the privilege of paying to maintain that truck year after year. So that's sort of the way the enterprise data management software market was until Solix introduced what I'm about to show you. Well, let's go to the next what-if slide. Now what if we reverse that and said we make buying enterprise data management software like moving? So if that was the case, you would be able to pay for the software as needed, just like pay U-Haul or Allied Van Lines just for the amount of moving service you need. You'd be able to have an option of either doing it yourself with a U-Haul truck or hiring a full-service moving company. You could let a trained professional move the data for you. And most importantly, you could save a lot of money and accelerate your return on investment. So Solix has now introduced what we call Solix On-Demand Enterprise Data Management. And we think this completely changes the ROI equation for a database archiving project. So move on to the next slide, and I'll just tell you briefly what Solix On-Demand is all about. So we offer Solix On-Demand for archiving, for test data management, the creation and updating of all your instances for your test and development teams. We also have the option to use Solix On-Demand if you want to retire older legacy applications, keep the data but retire the applications and free up the infrastructure that's required to run those older applications. So it's based on a pay-per-use pricing model. You pay only for the amount of usage that you incur, and it's on a per gigabyte basis. So if you are archiving, say, half of a 1 terabyte database, then you pay for 500 gigabytes of usage. We can support you with this model if you want to become self-sufficient. If you want to be self-sufficient, meaning you just want to do this yourself and have your staff learn how to use the Solix technology, or we can combine it with resources from our Solix services team and offer you a turnkey managed service. So kind of back to the moving analogy, we have the U-Haul option or the full-service Allied Van Lines option. So what this does is it minimizes your upfront capital requirements. So instead of going and filling out a capital request for the full license cost of the software and the full and all that goes along with that, you could determine just how much data you need to move and then get the spending authorization for that amount of money. And in many cases, that might be even something you could do as an operating expense rather than a capital expense. And then the last point is that unlike a perpetual license, there's no ongoing cost for the on-demand service. So once you move the data, it's in your repository, there's no additional costs or fees you have to pay to Solix for having used the service. Let's go to the next slide, and I'll wrap up with why you might want to consider this. So it allows you to solve this data management problem we've been talking about and improve your application performance, improve the efficiency of your test and data management process, and also even give you the option to retire applications and free up those legacy infrastructure costs. The low-risk way to get started, you pay only for what you use. You can do a perpetual license in the future if you choose to do that. The managed service option allows you to, if you're short-staffed or you have other higher priorities, then you can have your staff focus on those tasks and let a trained EDMS professional come in and do this for you. And with the theme of this call, it is a lower-cost way to do enterprise data management, and with the end result of providing faster return on investment. So I'm going to wrap up just with a slide that talks about why customers in the past have selected Solix. So we think it's a combination of four main things. So our product functionality, we think, is market-leading, comprehensive. It supports database archiving, subsetting, masking, data migration, application retirement. We have the flexibility to support all the major packaged applications as well as your custom applications. Our architecture is very flexible. There's no proprietary lock-in. We leverage your existing investment that you've made in your Oracle database technology or your other infrastructure. We're a 100% web-based solution, and with a single install, we can allow you to manage multiple applications in your enterprise. We believe that our strategic partnership with Oracle is very important, and one of the recent activities in that partnership, Oracle has signed an OEM agreement embedding our solution with their vertical market banking application. We're talking to Oracle about other types of OEM agreements as well. And we believe we provide more integration with Oracle technologies than any other vendor in our space. The Oracle Universal Online Archive, all of the database technology integrations that Charlie mentioned, all of the application integrations as well. And lastly, our licensing model, we're the only vendor to offer the on-demand and managed service alternatives, providing you the lowest total cost of ownership. And but that's the summary of why that customers have selected us. Let's go on to the next slide, and I'd like to introduce Ashok Agarwal from Sun. And Sun is, as you know, in the process of being acquired by Oracle, and Sun, prior to that announcement, had selected Oracle or selected Solix for their archiving project, and I'd like Ashok now to tell you a little bit about that.
Thanks, Mark. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I am a senior IT manager at Sun Microsystems, managing the tool strategy and the implementation. And even though the Oracle, we are in the process of being acquired by Oracle, we are still an independent company. So I just wanted to give this update. As Mark and Charlie mentioned, I think we have already gone through the importance of archiving solution. I would like to add one more thing. Archiving is very important. It's not only important to improve the performance, but to sustain the current business SLA and meet the business SLA with the growing data every day. And I'm very, highly advocate of the archiving solution in Sun. Sun had learned this importance of archiving way back in 1997 when we had implemented the Oracle application 10.7. And in 1997, there was no vendor available to do the archiving in that space for 10.7. And we made the decision in 1999 to have the custom solution to support our business growth and to have the archiving solution in place. Now we have moved from 10.7. We are implementing right now the Oracle 11.5.10. And since we had already seen the importance of archiving during the project phase, during the deployment, we started initiative to have the archive solution in our 11.5.10 application. And most of the IT people will run into the issues, and the question always comes from the business side or the IT management. Why can't you build the infrastructure which can sustain 20 terabyte database? It's not that we cannot build the infrastructure, as mentioned by Charlie and Mark, but it's the cost. How much you are interested in spending the cost, and not only the cost to build the infrastructure, day-to-day operation, backing up the database, restoring the database, applying the patches, all the timings which are directly proportional to the database size keeps on going up. So it's not only the infrastructure, but how to maintain and sustain and meet the current business SLA with the data growing every day. And the challenges in Sun, what we faced, our database has gone up from 700 GB to 6.2 terabyte right now. It's probably just 2 years we have seen this kind of growth. It's not that day by day we are getting to that much data, but at the same time we are consolidating most of the application into the single instance, and we are seeing those kind of data growth. Our database is growing 5 to 8 GB per day, and that comes to around 2 to 3 terabyte per year. Our backup time or the backup transfer time to clone any instance or the restore time, any time which is directly proportional to the database size, has grown up significantly, and that's causing the indirect cost to the day-to-day operation. If we have to clone a specific instance, we cannot clone, and it takes 4 to 5 days before it can be cloned because of the huge data size. And not only the cloning process, just for example, applying the patch. If the patch is going across the data and is selecting the data, the patch takes 6 to 7 or sometimes 8 hours to apply the patch into the production box. Some of the tables, which are so huge, we have more than 3 billion rows, and we can't even gather the stats on those tables, and it gathers stats, most of the time it fails or it doesn't complete. So there are a lot of challenges. I can go over and over the challenges any company faces with the growing data and how to meet and how to balance out the day-to-day operational activities. Next slide, please. The benefits what we had seen into the past and now what we are going to see implementing the archive solution is a less storage space for the various database copies, backups, clones, reporting. In the deployment phase, we had 40 instances, and assuming that we are cloning the full backup, it would be 200 terabytes of storage. So instead of that, it would be less storage. Also, we implemented the subsetting that reduced the storage size from 5.5 to 6 terabyte to 1 terabyte, and that significantly reduced the storage size for the development instance, test instance, training instance, and we kept the beta as a production size to ensure that we have the full performance testing done before we hit the production into the beta environment. Also, main archive benefits, again, the backup time, restore time, recovery time, as it's a pretty straightforward, whatever is directly proportional to database size. And one of the main gain was the period close processing. We have more than 120 set of books, and each set of books has to be done in a specific time frame, and all the jobs has to complete within the given time frame to close our books and open the new period. And with the huge data, it was becoming challenging, and with the multiple modules being implemented, because it's the single largest global instance, and Sun is one of the main customer with all the modules implemented in the single instance, it was really challenging for us to do the complete end-to-end period close processing within the given time frame to meet the regulatory and the compliance requirements. And also, when you have the small data, some query also you don't notice those issues, but with the large data size, we were seeing a lot of issues from the performance perspective, whether the code was not right or something was not tuned properly, and which was taking a long time. Some of the jobs were taking 30 to 35 hours to run in the production because of the huge data size. The other point was just to stay within the IT infrastructure budget. It's not that we wanted to gain the budget or reduce the expenses, but how to maintain the same service level within the given budget and control the operation cost. Also, to free up some of the storage and other servers for the strategic initiative, if you have to implement any other solution, at least you will have free space and you have the budget free. And last thing was lower the licensing cost for application database that are tied to total CPU storage usage, because some of the times you have to pay the licensing cost based on the CPU, and if you have less storage, you can at least shrink, you can reduce your CPU requirement for the production. We are running 4 E25K, and still we were seeing the significant time taken for long-running jobs. Also, the performance issue with the data growing day by day. With that, I will just pause and thanks Mark to give me the opportunity to discuss some of the pain point what Sun has gone through. And looking at those things, we did the proof of concept. We followed the process, and with the POC and selected Solix as a partner to provide the solution for our archive solution at Sun Microsystems. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Ashok. Well, that concludes the presentation part of our webinar today, but we have a few minutes left, and I'd like to invite any questions or comments that you may have. No questions today, huh? Okay, well,
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
We are talking, when the example that was given is like for big database. In our case, we don't have a huge database. It's a small database compared to what you said. We have like a 400 gigabyte database, and I don't see, I have difficulty kind of seeing how useful this application will be to my company.
That's a good question, and we have customers that have databases as small as less than 100 gigabytes. So I think a lot of it depends upon the application that you're running. Some applications are very well tuned for handling large data volumes. Other applications are very poorly tuned. So even if you have a small database, if your application is not well tuned, even a small increase in data can severely impact the performance. The other thing is, if depending on how long you've been in production with your application, you might be like other customers that have a large percentage of their data that is in the inactive status. And by removing that inactive data out of your production database, you can definitely see performance improvements and reduce the storage costs. So it's really not just for the super large database customers. It's really focused on improving the efficiency of your application.
And Mark, this is Ashok. I would just take one minute quickly just to address this question. I think, and Mark, whatever he said is actually right. Any company can gain benefit from the archive solution because, as person mentioned, it was 400 GB, but your infrastructure was built to manage 200 GB or 400 GB. In our case, we knew that our database size will be huge because of the Oracle 11.5.10, and we had the huge data. So our infrastructure was built to maintain or manage 4 terabytes of database size. And now if it is growing, then definitely there's the impact on the performance and the SLA. For same example, for you, right now we have full E25K, and if you put your application on full E25K, the performance will be really fast. But at the same time, it's a return on investment and how much expense and what is the cost to gain that kind of performance. And if your infrastructure is capable of handling, definitely you might not see the issue right now. But as soon as the data grows, it will be starting to have seen the impact on your application performance. So even though the database size is not huge, archiving should be able to help you gain better performance and and reduce the total cost of ownership.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, well, let me, on behalf of Solix, Oracle, and Sun Microsystems, thank you very much for joining us today. And if you have any additional questions, information about our solution, how it works, how we might be able to help you, please contact us, and we will be as responsive as possible in getting you the information you need.
I'd like to ask a question if I could.
Oh, certainly.
Can you describe if your product works on the DB2 on the mainframe?
Yes, sir, it does, and we've helped customers primarily who are looking to retire older mainframe applications. They want to migrate the data out of DB2 into a less expensive archival database. It could be an Oracle database or something else, but mainly to free up the cost of running the mainframe application. But yes, we do support DB2 and DB400.
Good, thank you.
presentation from today?
I believe in, Akshay, correct me if I'm wrong, we will be posting this on our website?
Yes, we will be posting this recording, Kathy, on our website, and I'll send you the link as soon as this is done so that you should be able to access it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is going to be participants.
This is Beth Gonzalez. I have a quick question. In regards to the tables that you can go through from an Oracle Applications archiving perspective, is that still based on just the core transactional tables, or does this archiving solution go beyond that to where you can stripe data to go through and do an archiving based on some sort of org ID or anything associated with that?
That's a great question. Traditionally, our archiving solution was focused on the high volume transactional tables because we found that the bulk of the data growth in Oracle Applications was concentrated in the major transaction tables from each module. So that's how we got started. But we've got more and more customers that are asking that question that you just asked, and we have developed the ability to create archives and subsets based upon other parts of the data structure. So, for example, we're helping a customer right now create an archive based upon all the data that belongs to a certain set of customers. We've also done the org ID archiving that you just mentioned. And so we have the ability to support both the transactional-based archiving as well as creating more customized approaches based upon your unique needs.
And then, just to get a follow-up question. So when you were talking about the seamless access from your current production environment to your archived environment, does that go off of the same responsibility access, and there's some sort of mapping behind the scenes that will go through and map to those same tables in the archived environment? And do you also go through and provide a solution that provides the patching on the archived environment when you do the patches on your core environment?
Yeah, Beth, those are very good questions. So the first one is about the responsibility. So what we do is we create additional responsibilities when we do the installation of the software, and we can create responsibilities that point to just the data that has been archived or the combination of production data plus the data that's been archived, so you can see a complete view of the data. That's really nice for users because it relieves any anxiety they might have about archiving. So we actually relocate the data, but to the end user, if they have this merged responsibility, it looks like the data has never left. So you get the benefits of archiving that we've talked about without having to do hardly any additional training for your users. So we do that by creating database-level views that point to the archived tables, and then we have a schema that we attach those additional responsibilities to. So that's the responsibilities question. And then the question about keeping the archive tables in sync, we have a capability that we call the patch synchronizer. And what it does is anytime you apply a patch from Oracle or your other software vendors, you run the patch synchronizers, it will determine if any of the tables that have been archived have been affected by the patch you just applied, and if they have, then it will synchronize those tables to keep everything in sync. So we definitely have that capability, and that's an important. Okay. I've got about 1 minute left. Any last thoughts or questions? Well, Great. Again, thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing from you and supplying you with whatever information you need if you want to move forward with an archiving